So I got with me today producing artist, director for In Loving Colored Productions, peer support specialist, and theater film actor, an actor in the play Thurgood, Mr. Michael Tatmon. Michael, welcome to VRP. How are you, sir?
It's good to be here, Coach Avery. Good to be here.
Hey, man. Long time coming, brother. I appreciate
Long
you for
time,
freeing up some
long
time.
time. I follow you. I
I,
follow you all the time.
Man, I appreciate it. I love all. I thank you for all the support. Um, me and you, we met on Facebook a while back. We lived in the same community in Fort Collins, and I just have to tell people that are listening, like, there's not very many black people in Fort Collins, and
No.
and the people that I already had knew, obviously, or the people I already knew, but it was refreshing to see that you were there too, and to see, you were an actor, someone that was in the professional world was refreshing. And so I was, delighted to see that you were in the same community. Yet we didn't get a chance to shake hands and give each other a hug, but we stayed in contact on Facebook. We follow each other. Yeah. And I've always wanted to tap in and see what you do and see how we can help each other out. And so, God created this moment in time. And so I appreciate you for being available.
Absolutely.
How's the weather out there in Colorado? You see, I got my hat on. Representing.
I see you. It's cold, a little bit cold today.
Yeah.
It snowed a little bit last night, and we're supposed to get a little bit more tonight. But Colorado is never really that bad.
Right.
It's never really that bad. In a couple of days, it'll be 54 degrees and sunshine again.
Right. I know,
so
right?
It's go. But so far we haven't had a bad winter yet. We haven't had a lot of snow, so I'm still waiting for it to blaze down on us.
Yeah, I know when we lived there, it got pretty bad, man. And you know what? It's not bad. It's like you could be outside and it's like 10 degrees and not have a coat on and be fine.
Oh yeah.
It's
Like
interesting.
It's not bad. It's not. I lived in South Dakota for 6 years.
Oh Lord,
and that's a frozen tundra. I mean, that's but I tell you, the first year that I was there, it had three major snowstorms in the month of May.
In May,
going into June.
Wow.
I told myself, I got online and I started looking for, man, I'm moving. I started looking. My friend told me, he said, man, just stay here one summer. If you stay here one summer, you're gonna love it. And he was right. When that summer came, man, that was the Black Hills was the most beautiful place you could ever imagine. I see why the Native American called it his spiritual homeland. I mean, it was an amazing, beautiful spiritual. Every time you drove up in the Black Hills, man, your mouth just drop open.
Really? So why do they call it Black Hills?
Well, when you look at it from a distance, it actually looks totally black. The trees, all the trees, it just looks totally black. When you look up there, it's like the Black Forest they have in Germany. I spent 3 years in Germany, and the Black Forest. Now, what I learned when I was there in South Dakota was on Ellis Island. On Ellis Island, when the immigrants came in, they would dispatch them to places in the United States that were similar to the environments that they lived in when they were in Europe.
Yeah,
and when you get into South Dakota, you start looking at all the people, and they look really, really German. They have a lot of German last names. They have the Black Hills there. They got the Black Forest in Germany, and the climate is just the same. The winter, everything, it's just the same. So when they came over, they were able to adapt, and they were able to continue on with their farming ways and pick up right where they left off. It's an extraordinary place. If you ever get a chance to visit,
that's South Dakota.
South Dakota. If you ever get a chance to visit South Dakota, and the Lakota Indian there, who is the most rebellious, I believe, native on the face of the earth. He refuses to assimilate into their culture. their spirit often reminds me a lot of times of the position sometimes that we should take as black people. They refuse to assimilate. They were given $800 million in 1982 for the Black Hills because there was a treaty there between them and the United States that the Black Hills would be there. That was their place to live. That was their hunting ground. We found gold over there. And it's funny because Chief Red Cloud, he called gold the rock that makes men mad. See, they had been seeing gold for thousands of years. They didn't understand why people were fighting over gold and killing his people over some gold, over some rocks.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So we took the Black Hills back from them, gave them $800 million. Lakota Indian, they have never cashed a check. It still sits in a bank account accumulating interest. It's up in the billions right now. And they still continue to live in the old ways on their reservation.
Beautiful.
Well, to a certain extent, it's beautiful. They're never going to get the Black Hills back. You know, they've got all European people up there now, man. They got resorts, they got gambling, they got $1 million homes and places for people to come. There's too much money going on up there right now, you know, and the Anglo is cashing in so big, you know, that they're never going to get it back. And they're just, the Anglo looks at it this way. The native fought a war and lost. So deal with it.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you brought this up, Mr. Michael, because I look at Black history as American history. And we might just even call it that. And I think at this point, we should just allow and even suggest for white people to celebrate their own history during Black history, because it all ties together. Even indigenous history, it all ties together. And we really can't remove it, you know?
No.
And I really wanted to highlight this conversation just to educate people on Mr. Thurgood Marshall, you know, and we get on the reality of the history of indigenous people in South Dakota, you know, and it is so tied together, and it's such a beautiful thing. And you know, just to hear the you know, the fact that South Dakota natives and indigenous people, and shout out to indigenous people, by the way, you know, of holding that line is motivating in some sense, you know, because the powers that be, man, they've ran amok. I mean, let's just call it for what it is. They have ran amok. There's a lot to be thankful for. There's a lot of beautiful things that came out of their thinking and their vision, but also there's a lot of hurt people and a result to their vision in their thinking. And something's got to give. And to hear that brief history is pretty cool. I can't wait to
incredible.
Try to go to South Dakota. Yeah,
it's incredible. It's incredible. Their resilience as a people,
right?
The fact that they no one can our government resents the fact that they won't let us on to their land.
Right.
But history has shown every time they've made some sort of a deal with the American Anglo, it's been broken.
Yeah.
And if you go on to their land and you see the level of poverty, you know, whenever the Anglo cannot get his way, he's going to find some way to starve you out. Okay? He's going to find some way to deny you something that needs to be implemented into your people's infrastructure in order for you to finally come to the point where you agree with him and you go his way. Yeah. If you was to go on these reservations and you was to hear the history of the missionaries, they number one, they forced these natives to take English names. There was so much raping and child molestation. If you go on I spent a lot of time on this Pine Ridge. If you see that level of poverty, you would not believe that it even exists in the United States. Wow. And if this was any other community in the United States, CNN and all the networks would be all over that.
Yeah.
But you don't see it. You know, it's not on the news. It's not, and that's done by purpose, and it's because of their denial to assimilate into our culture. Right. They're being treated as if they're a foreign enemy.
Wow. And this is their land.
They were here first.
Right. Right.
They were here first. Now, what made how they did this thing was the Lakota Indian, he lived off the buffalo. They have Crazy Horse Museum. They're building a nice Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse's hair in the wind is larger than Mount Rushmore altogether. They started building it in the 60s. It's going so slow because they refuse to accept any government money. They only take donations. They will not take any government money to finish this massive sculpture. His hair, he's sitting on a horse pointing, and his hair, just his hair alone standing in the wind, is bigger than the entire structure of Mount Rushmore.
Wow.
And you go into the museum and you begin to see how these people live. They have every piece of the buffalo, everything on the buffalo they utilize, down to the hoofs for tools. They killed the buffalo in the summertime, and then they went into the Black Hills where the wind, because the wind was so serious, they got off the plains and went into the Black Hills, and they lived the whole winter off that meat that they made. So the first thing they did was the cavalry came in, shot up buffalo, and not only shot them up, but they went and they poisoned the meat so that the meat couldn't be eaten. So here you got acres and acres and acres of dead buffalo. These people couldn't eat. A lot of them had to try to go to Canada, but they literally, in the battle, they literally starved them out. That's how they broke their spirit. And the chief finally had to look at his children and look at all the people in the tribe and had to make the agreement and surrender to the United States so that his people would at least be able to live. But that's how they did it. They starved them out. And you look and you see the pictures of the plains of the buffalo, and you see they came and they shaved them. They dumped poison on them so they couldn't eat and just rotted the skins out so they couldn't be used for fur in the wintertime. They destroyed their spirit. But at the same time, what the Anglo says is that it was a war.
Yeah.
It was a war on American soil. So,
wow, man.
Yeah.
That's deep. And I hope we can use this moment and this Black History 2024 as a moment of reconciliation. I think that, millennials and the next generation of people are, wanting to do away with the wars. We have information ready and available at the flick of a wrist and at the point of a finger.
Yeah, and the thing is that many slaves went out there, and many of them married into the natives. Yeah. So that's where you got the buffalo soldier.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? When the buffalo show, they call them buffalo soldiers because the black brothers had the kinky hair.
Right.
But they fought. They were fighting for the Indian. You see what I'm saying? They married Indian women. They bought. So the problem is the issue is not between the native and the black man.
Right.
And out there in South Dakota, it's not really between the white man and the black man. There's not enough black people out there to even do anything. So it's like 1% black. But you can see it's the anger is still between the cowboys and the Indians. It's still the white man and the native. They're still at each other, man, and they still, too many lives have gone down, too much innocent blood has been spilt, and it's the same thing that they have with black people. They think that for some reason or another, they think that we don't deserve some sort of, ability to
Justice.
build, some justice. So,
Right.
what do they call it when they talk about trying to give black people some money or something like that?
Reparative justice, reparations.
Yeah,
Yes,
reparations.
Lord.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yes.
reparations.
Yes, Lord.
How can you take a man who
Mhm.
how can you take a man who's been in bondage,
Right.
uneducated, and then you put him at the starting line with everybody else and tell him to compete
That's right.
evenly?
That's right.
It's
Almost unrealistic. It's unrealistic.
it's
It's
unrealistic.
proven to be unrealistic.
It's unrealistic,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the people that we have, like Thurgood Marshall,
Mhm.
that's what makes these guys so extraordinary, and it's why it's our signature play.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hold that thought,
go
Mr.
ahead,
Michael.
go ahead.
We gonna get there. We gonna get there.
Oh yeah,
But
roll on.
I want to finish this introduction, and I'm glad we're here.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about In Living Color. What how did you come up with that?
In Living Colored, I was tinkling around. I was working with vocational rehab. They were working with me with developing a business plan, and they kept saying, you need a tagline. You need something, a tagline that's going to help you brand your business. In Living Colored came to me because what I wanted the company to do was to represent, like a crayon box, all the colors of the world. I looked in northern Colorado, and I was in Atlanta theater. I was in Atlanta theater for a long time. Went overseas in China, toured China with the theater company. And Atlanta theater and the rest of most of the places in the country are very, very, for a long time now, have been very, very diverse. You have Hispanic theaters, you have Jewish theaters, you have Asian theater companies, you have Black theater companies all over Atlanta, New York, everywhere. But you come here in northern Colorado, which is predominantly white, yes,
Right.
but it's beginning. The landscape is beginning to change. For the last 2 years, we've had a very successful Juneteenth, 3-day Juneteenth festival. Now, that Juneteenth festival, we have done no fundraising. It has all been funded by the city. And we have done a very successful, for 3 days, different groups, different people come down, and everyone's enjoyed it. And that shows that what we need is more diverse in our entertainment world.
Absolutely.
Why should Black people or anybody, Latinos, anybody, have to travel up the road an hour, stay in traffic, you know what I mean? Unable to really let their hair down and enjoy themselves. They got to make the drive back
Right.
to have entertainment.
You're talking about down in Denver, right? Or Colorado Springs?
They got to go down to Denver, Colorado
Right.
Springs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
True,
so
man.
why, we understand. See, the thing about northern Colorado is this. When you look, the history of the KKK in Colorado, Denver was a big a hub for the KKK. 75% of the police force were members of the KKK. Now, when they had a mayor that went in there, and he was formerly KKK, but when he began to see the tactics, he made a commitment to bust down the KKK in Denver area, and they spread to these little pockets. Northern Colorado was one of the pockets that they spread to. You know what I mean? And so it's
part of that. I don't mean to interrupt, but it's part of that Confederacy diaspora that spread out from the South all the way out to the West, and created the safe haven almost to perpetuate that hatefulness towards one specific color or race or group of people.
Yeah, exactly. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. You're exactly right. I remember driving up in the hills one night, and we were way up in the hills, and we saw this little place. We said, I had to go to the bathroom. We both had to go to the bathroom, and I got out the car, and I noticed that there was a couple of kids over in this yard, the restaurant, and right across from the yard, right across this dirt road, and they looking at me. I got out the car, and I had dropped something, so I picked it up. By the time I picked it up and looked around, they had run in and they had got the whole family. The whole family was standing there like this, looking at us.
Mm.
And I said, baby, you going in the bathroom, and then when you start to come out, I'm gonna go. But it was this uneasy feeling, the father looking at everybody, and it was like I said, I know these people at least have seen black people on television.
Yeah. So it's just you and your wife?
Yeah. Well, my ex-wife, I'm divorced now.
Okay.
But yeah, it was just us two. Wow. You know what I mean? She's from Kansas
just
City.
two black people.
Just two black people, and it was,
man,
and the whole family came out and was standing there, and I said, Lord, don't let us break down up in here.
Right. Yeah.
But when you hear when the stories go into the play, I mean, that's 1940, that's 1950 all over again in America.
Wow, man.
You know, all over again in America. And they just looked at us with such a hatred, like, what do we do? Why are you up here?
Yeah.
And I get the feeling that everywhere we go where there's not a lot of us, people automatically expect us to be stealing something or doing something,
right?
Or doing something, man. You know what I mean? So
yeah. No, I second that, man. And it's unfortunate because, we've been here since the obsession of the country. We've helped build the country into a place to where people are crossing over the border illegally to be a part of what's happening here. So there's some greatness that has traveled across beyond that people recognize. And we've been a part of that since the inception. And I lived in Colorado, and I hate to admit and say it, but I've experienced some occasions to where I felt like I wasn't wanted. I felt like I was a surprise. I worked amongst people that I guess believed in pop culture, that people like me, weren't supposed to talk the way I did, or carry myself the way that I did. And so pop culture has did a thing in developing a negative perception of black Americans, and that's unfortunate. But we're going to walk up to Thurgood Marshall, and we're going to play the video, and you're going to explain to his importance to this country, because I think that's where we're at now, is that, again, that moment of reconciliation, and more of a heightened awareness to people that are not black. I think non-black people should use this moment in history to recognize the totality of this country. And so we're going to get there, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Before we dive in, though, even further, I got to get your pick for tomorrow's game, because I'm going to be thinking about that while we're talking about other subjects and topics. Who you got for tomorrow's game?
Well, my sister and I always do a yearly bet, and whoever loses got to pay the other one $25. Buy him lunch.
Okay, let me in on that. Let me get a side piece of that.
But she, I wanted to go for Kansas City.
Yeah.
But my ex-wife is from Kansas City, and I still
got Lord, yeah, I'm going completely against her.
I still got some angst because I used to hear her mouth all the time in the house. So I would like Kansas. I think Kansas City's gonna win, but I'm gonna root for the 49ers.
Yeah.
But if I had to,
Kansas City wins.
If I bet, I would bet Kansas City.
Kansas City, yeah. I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. And, we hate the Niners. So by default, I'm going with Kansas City, but also they got Patrick Mahomes, man. And he's got the experience, and man, that boy don't miss. Like he's sharp with the ball, decision making. I think they got a good running game. So at any point that they get ahead, I feel like if they run that ball well enough that they can keep
and that
those other
defense,
boys off the field. Yeah, the defense is pretty sharp too.
that defense is good. That defense
Yeah.
is good. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you know what I mean? America is built on Cinderella stories.
Yeah,
Right now, Brock is he's the Cinderella story.
Is.
And I think he's either gonna choke or he's gonna blaze.
Show up. Yeah.
He's gonna show up. So
yeah, I agree.
Whatever man shows up, but at the same time, when it gets down to the last 5 to 6 minutes of the game, you all know that's Patrick Mahomes' time.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah, we'll see, man. I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a good Super Bowl. Nonetheless,
the only way I think if San Francisco can build up a big lead and ride out the storm, that's the only way.
Yeah. Well, Kansas City got Andy Reid, who is a offensive genius. So they're really, I mean, even if San Francisco got a big lead, it's really hard to count Kansas City out because they got Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. But we're gonna see.
We're gonna see.
So, Michael, you talked a little bit about traveling around the world, and you talked about your experience, moving out to Colorado. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and your upbringing.
Well, I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. My father was in the military. My mother was a teacher. 6 weeks after I was born, boom, I was on a ship going to Greece. I spent the first 2 years of my life in Greece. Then we came back. We were in Charleston, South Carolina, and then my father got transferred to Connecticut. So I grew up. Military people. We grow up in multicultural environments, so we see everything, and so we don't get stuck on. Usually a military person don't get hung up in racism because you're everywhere. Right. You're overseas with kids that are different, all this stuff like that, and you live in communities, with military communities, with all the different kind of kids. You got Mexicans that have served the United States. You got Asians that have served the United States. You got Africans. So you're in a multicultural community. So. So I begin to excel. I excel. I enjoyed the things like history in school. I enjoyed things like social studies, English, not English. It was like English literature, not the English where you had to, all that stuff like that. Math and stuff like that. Sciences I really wasn't attracted to. I'm very much attracted to the science world right now. It just literally blows my mind. Some of the things that I'm able to see when I'm scrolling on YouTube.
Right.
But my earliest ambitions were I wanted to play professional football, just like any other little boy. I loved football. I loved all the sports, played all the sports, but I really, really loved football. And my idol was O.J. Simpson, and when I got to be into the sports, I got his number 32. And
you play running back?
I played running back, okay. And then on defense, I played linebacker. I went on and I became captain of my football team. My father got transferred up to New York, so we lived in a community 2 hours outside of New York called Milford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And that was actually my first experience with racism. I mean, I didn't even really know, and it wasn't a nasty, hardcore racism. It was a racism where they thought it would be okay to tell certain jokes around me. You know what I mean? Yeah. when you're hanging with the guys.
Very
You know
familiar
what I
with
mean?
that. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when you're hanging with the guys, and you know, and they're your friends.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
you know, but you know, I learned to joke back with them, because whenever we went out into a situation, and say we had 3 high schools, and we would go on the other side, and they didn't want us dating girls in their school and all that stuff. We go on the other side of on the other side of town, and they would look at us and they would see us, you know what I mean, and they would call me. Is it okay for me to say the N word, or should I just
Absolutely.
say
Yes.
yeah?
Absolutely.
And they would call me nigger.
Yeah.
And
With the ER or the A? Because there's a difference.
no, nigger, ER.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We gonna kick your behind and all that stuff in the game. And so I hung out with a lot of Italian and Irish boys, and I would say, man, let's go. They would say, no, man, we got to fight.
Yeah.
I would say,
yeah,
no,
it was with it. Huh?
I said, man, look, I ain't trying to do that, man. Let's go. Look,
Right.
we'll take it out of them on the field. They say, no, Mike, we going to fight right now. And so we were close that way. And you know, when you get close with white people, you give them a little bit more leeway. They can crack a joke here or there. Then you do the average, because you know it's not coming from a place of hate. You know, and the thing is that at the same time, the girl that I liked and started dating, I couldn't go to her house. You know,
she white.
Yeah, she was white. It was, you know, I had to meet her someplace. I had to pick her up around the corner, or have one of her friends pick her up, take her to the place.
Relatable.
We could not go into restaurants because her parents' friends might see us. So we spent a lot of our time, you know, down at the beach. You know what I mean? Just sit down at the beach at night, or we go to a friend's house. But you know, her father, he admired. He would come to the games because his daughter was a cheerleader. So after the game, he would walk on the field and he would shake my hand. Good game, Mike, man. You know what I mean? And pat me on the shoulder.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when I first went to pick her up, it was pouring down raining. Some friends came by. Mike, you go to the door. I said, man. So I went to the door to get my girl, knocked on the door. Her father opened up the door. And he saw me standing there, and he slammed the door on my face in the pouring rain. You know what I mean? And then she came out, and you know, she just played it off because we had a group of friends, so it was like a group of us were going. It wasn't like I was picking her up. You know what I mean? But the fact that you know, that shocked him that I was picking up his daughter, and I was thinking to myself, I said, man, this man just shook my hand. Told me what a good game I played on Saturday, and now, you know, so that was and we had to. She had a little sister 2 years younger than her, and her sister knew, and she supported us. And she also kept the secret, and you know. But I think about the things that I had that you had to do just to go through a normal childhood where you know. When you like someone, you should just be able to like someone.
That's right.
You know, so a lot of that, a lot of what I'm presenting right now was nurtured during that time. I went into the military after that, went overseas. And when I was in Germany for 3 years, you know, there was no racial issue. You know, the girls took you to the house, you ate over their house, you know, had dinner, and then they would say, okay, we're gonna go upstairs now and go to sleep. The girl would say this to her parents: we're gonna go upstairs and go to sleep. And I'm looking at her like, do you realize that your parents?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we would go. We'll see you at breakfast in the morning. And I would say, you know what I mean?
Is this okay? Am I gonna wake up alive? Right. Yeah.
Because you know, you wouldn't do that to an American father.
That's
and
right.
We would go upstairs and we would go to sleep and come back down and have breakfast. And you know, I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that a lot of these families they wanted their daughter to marry into an American, into American family
Yeah.
and receive some of the prosperity that we had. But I am so I have lived. I have very few regrets in my life, but one of the regrets I have is that I did not marry a European woman. I mean, they just they really, I mean, they really treated you. I mean, they draw your bath water. You know what I mean? When you come home, it's always a nice, beautiful environment. You know what I mean? Whatever you're doing, they're encouraging you. They were just a whole different breed. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, oh yeah, I got it. It came back here and I had the frustration of my life. As a matter of fact, right now I've sworn off American women. No, I can't even deal with them.
Well, just to go back real quick. So I said I want to go back real quick because you made some really good points in terms of like that. I guess it has to be a stigma. It was a stigma. It is a stigma when the man appreciated your talent, but when it came to a relationship with his daughter, he slammed the door in your face. When you talk about the experience that you had with the European woman and their family and how they were accepting, because they saw the benefits of being in a relationship with an American man. But I think as Americans, it's time for us to look at Black Americans and they're just Black people in America. And even in America, regardless of your race, like you don't have complete control of who your dependent loves. Like,
no.
And this is what people say, a melting pot. Like you can't be surprised if your daughter bring home a Black man or a Hispanic man or an Irish man, and you know it's just
is he going to be good
crazy.
To her? Is he going to be good?
That's the bottom line.
You know, and the thing is that in 1964, before integration, 87% of our families, Black families in the United States, had a mother and father. 50% of Black America was self-employed. Today, it's less than 7% that are self-employed, and only 17% of our families have a mother and father. Now, what has happened? What has happened to our relationships? I mean, just our ability to maintain a family and stick together, and you know, we have never had really that big of a problem. I know in my community, if one of the brothers married a Caucasian girl in the community, she was looked at like she was a Black woman. Nobody was gonna mess with her. You know what I mean? But it's not if a Black man marries a white girl into a white, it's a different
dynamic.
Well, it has been. I think things obviously got to be changing, but it has been. You know, I don't know. Things have got to be changing in that area. I mean,
you would think so. You would think so.
Well, the fact that these old people are dying off, I believe
right.
I believe that once my generation goes, you know, we're on our way to really cleaning up. You know, not discrimination, but racism. We should be on our way.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
And I think it'd be beneficial to kind of remove that. I do think we're on our way. I completely agree with you, Mrs. Michael. It's essential that we do remove that. That it's a complete barrier to what we have to offer as a group, as far as acceptance to the world and to this country. I think we've seen our better days. We've yet to see our better days. But I think what's preventing us from seeing our better days is, and no shot at your generation, but a shot at your generation, is the baby boomer generation just removing that stigma, that prejudice, and that racist. Like, we can't erase the fact that Black Americans and white Americans were here since the inception of the country, and like you can't remove the reality of what an American is. No. And that's at the end of the day is like an American don't always and aren't always going to be white.
No,
an American isn't always going to be Black, right? No. And so there is a level of assimilation that I think that comes with associating with being American. And I think it's the American values, right? Waking up, working hard, um, providing for your family, and protecting and looking out for your neighbor. Like, these are common values that Americans have. Defending our borders, providing for people that can't provide for themselves, to be able to show them their way, not to give them a handout. But these are values that are American values, and it don't have a color to them.
Exactly.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think what you said is spot on. During my travels, like I said, God has allowed me to see both sides of the coin.
That's right.
I grew up when I went to theater school. I grew up with a teacher that my mother was a teacher reading. So, and then I went into the theater, and articulation and of your speech was worked on heavy. So when I began to go out into the world to get roles, the frustrating thing that I encountered was I was too black for white roles, but I was too white for black roles. You see what I'm saying? So I'm caught in this in between cycle. Now, a lot of that frustration, you know what I mean, I took on myself, and it led to a lot of, whenever you feel frustrated in life, something appears. And I've noticed this. Something will appear to give you the key, to give you a key to feeling better. That's the thing for me was cocaine. I'm in the theater world. I'm banging my way up as a young man. So doing cocaine was just something we did.
Yeah.
It was some things that some people did and could get away with it recreationally, and there was some people that got hooked on it because they had a addictive tendency. So cocaine took me through a long and devastating parts of my life, where I've experienced jail, I experienced prison, I experienced extreme poverty, homelessness, divorce, lost job opportunities, all of those things.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but this came at the point of you starting your theater career, your acting career.
I got hooked. I got hooked in the beginning, while I was going in school. But like anyone else, I didn't know I was hooked. It took at least it took at least about 5 to 7 years for me to realize I'm hooked. And then it took probably about another decade for me to realize I can't outsmart this thing. I can't just do it on, I can't, and finally, I folded it when it got some help at the VA. But during that period, going through all of that, I began to see that Black people treat each other way worse than white people.
And what do you mean?
Well, the amount in our community, the amount of deaths, the amount of killings. I mean, people got killed over $5 or $10.
Yeah.
You take a man's life.
Facts.
Now they thought nothing, and they thought nothing in Atlanta. Atlanta was the number one. I was in Atlanta at the time. Atlanta was the murder capital of the United States. It was the transition place for all the cocaine on the East Coast. So during the 90s, there was just death after death after death. I mean, I'm talking about these are young brothers killing each other. The amount of deaths that we had to experience when it got to this point, where there were so many drive-by shootings and stray bullets that would kill little kids on playgrounds, little kids taking out the garbage. When it got to that point, Atlanta, the city stood up and said, okay, enough is enough. And they started tearing down all of these housing communities and traps and all of this stuff. And the sentences for a guy, they say the sentences they were just outrageous. You know what I mean? A guy could get life on the third time busted on a drug thing. He'd get life with no parole. You know, and they were saying how harsh that was, but at the same time, they wasn't looking at it through the lens of people who were honestly, in Atlanta's black people got a lot of money. You know what I mean? They got the communities there, man. They got nothing but mansions, all black owned. Atlanta has always been a place of prosperity. So at the same time, when you're looking into your community and you're seeing that level of destruction going on and no white person involved, you know what I mean? And when I saw, and then the churches, all the time that I was struggling on the street, and I would go into community shelters. I would go into a shelter. Sometimes it was a last resort. Tired, couldn't eat, what? But there was always white man or old white lady in there running the shelter with from a little church, trying to give a brother some food, place to stay, had a little clothing closet, place where you could take a shower. And I said to myself, once I got out of there and looked back, I said to myself, by that homelessness tour, you have multi-million-dollar black churches.
Come on.
We never set up a shelter for our own people, You know what I mean? We right on the corner, you would have a church with the Golden Arches, 20,000 people going there. Benzes and Lexuses sitting in it, and right next to them, they got a community, and they would put nothing into the community. You know what I mean? Nothing. Yeah. And you got mega churches in Atlanta. I'm talking about the preacher wearing gold chains, everything. You know what I mean? But not one of them could put up a shelter. There was not one black shelter.
Yeah. No, Mr. Michael, that's something that I can second. You know, I've struggled with addiction, and I've gone out of my way to look for black rehabs just to be able to be in a space to be relatable and feel more comfortable with the aid that I'm receiving. And, you know, we talked in the opening greatly about, you know, the prejudice of white men or white families dating, you know, black men dating their white daughters. This is a double-edged sword here. Like this, being in America isn't just white prejudice and black, I guess, uninvolvement. While we're seeking acceptance and, you know, commonality with white people, we're seeking black involvement with rehabilitation and opportunities for other black Americans as well. I get the sense in the black community, we see a lot of bootstrapperism, that notion that, hey, you know, I got it out the mud, you should be able to as well. And that's not always the case. And, you know, some of us, we find ourselves hard on our luck. You know, we find ourselves in certain addictions, and sometimes all we need to improve our lives and our situation is to be accepted by people that look like us. And so, you know, we're not, and my goal isn't to just paint a picture as white America is the problem, but we're looking at a totality here, and Black Americans play a role in some of the issues that we face as well, as far as Black Americans. And so I second what you said. I've looked into rehabilitation centers here in the Oklahoma City area. And I've had requests from clients of mine looking for Black spaces to be accepted and rehabilitated in, and we don't have anything available. But we have plenty of Black churches, and this is no shot or knock at the Black community, but maybe we can speak to this issue, and maybe someone in position that has the wealth, that has the connections, that works in the church, that maybe they will open up a facility for Black people that are looking to be rehabilitated by other Black people. And so that is a real thing. It really is. And I'm glad you found your way out of that situation.
We have issues that we need to talk about.
That's right.
Okay. That take case in point. I went to a 12-step meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a 12-step meeting. The topic was resentments.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I talked about my resentments and how I was overcoming them, but some of those resentments had to do with situations where I felt I was I was on jobs where I was being discriminated. Right. I felt resentment sometimes when I would bring up an idea and they would shoot it down, only for it to be implemented 2 months later by the guy I told it to. You know what I mean? And it made him, look good. And so, and I would get angry at those things, and that was a part of what was fueling me, because I had no one to talk to about that. Now, a man that wasn't even in the meeting, he called me the next day and said, "Hey, man, I want to talk to you." I said, "Well, what's up?" He said, "Well, what did you talk about in the meeting the other day?" Well, I said some resentments and stuff like that. And, he said, "Well, what else?" I said, "Well, some of my resentment had to do with, some racial stuff." He said, "Well, we got a tradition or something like that you're not supposed to talk about anything that's uncomfortable to anybody."
Wow.
I said, you know what I mean? So, in other words, the white people got uncomfortable with me talking about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I said, man, first of all, my anonymity is supposed to be protected. No one's supposed to say I was in there or not. You know what I mean? And the fact that you called me to address that, and you were going to counsel me on what to say in a therapeutic environment and what not to say. I said I never went back to that meeting. But at the same time, I'm saying to myself, wow, and I have found, even in group therapies, when I went into VA, when you talk about racism, because see, I found one therapist who has said the things that Black people have experienced in their life as far as racism, and that's PTSD right then and there.
That's right. Yep.
So we're not allowed to talk about it.
Right. There's no healing happening.
How are we gonna heal?
Right. Yeah.
You frozen. Yeah. You frozen right now.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay though?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Yeah. This whole thing is frozen.
Oh, okay.
No, you're right. That's why I feel like those safe spaces to talk about that stuff is so important.
And we have to be able to. I'm enrolled in the Colorado counselors training. Due to start in May. The first class I'm taking is diversity in treatment. To get my certified addiction technician. And to even have to have a class like that, when I looked into it,
that's crazy.
Even have to have a class that people of different colors get treated different in treatment. To even have to have a class like that, It blows my mind. I mean, it should be across the board.
Yeah.
Everybody gets treated and want to heal the same. But why are black and brown people getting treated differently in treatment?
Right. Yeah. It's mind blowing, but it's a real thing that's happening. We've I work in public health, and we refer people that reach out to us for help. We provide intervention help, mental health help, structured around substance abuse. And anytime that we get someone that wants, rehab or some type of help because of drug abuse, we seek organizations that already exist in the community to get them connected to. And there's been 3 or 4 occasions where we've had clients that were African American that wanted to get treatment. And there's very few treatment facilities that take state funded insurance or state funded. And the ones that we've reached out to, they seem to have room when a professional calls. And I may be looking too far into this, but the people that I sought to help weren't as professional in their communication, and their race may be noticeable through how they communicate. And so, are you with me, Mr. Michael?
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. And so we've made these referrals, and at the time of making the referrals on the professional side and how we speak and how we go about making the referrals, there were beds available. But when the person seeking this support called, who was African American, that one is a professional in their language, there became, and all of a sudden, was like a 3-week wait for a bed. And so we, as professionals, have been thinking, like, is there some type of discrimination in how they're perceiving this person's communicating? And so that's something that's real that we have to look out for people that are in rehab, because they only have a small window to say, hey, I'm ready. Get me in a bed, get me in a facility. And if that facility is not culturally responsive, if they're having a hard time communicating with the person that's wanting to get into the bed, and if they're only looking out for a specific group of people, then this person might not get admitted and might change their mind. And for all 4 clients, that's happened. They've changed their mind because it took too long. And one moment they call, there's a bed available. And then when we call, there's a bed available. But when the client calls to do their assessment, and some of my clients are from the street. And so, the street talk is, you know what I mean? And so, all of a sudden it's like a 2 or 3 week wait. And so there's a discrepancy there. And I'm not racist for objecting or having a reserved thought to how they're operating on that end as professionals to admit these clients. Unfortunately, this country has a history, and this is a history that we avoid to look at. And as long as we continue to avoid looking at our history, no one can truly heal. The ones that are sick, right? And we always tend to think that the only people that are sick are black people. White people are sick too when it comes to racism, because they've been, trained to think a certain kind of way towards black people through pop culture, right? Through maybe some minimum experiences, right? And so there's a lot of healing that needs to happen. And I think the longer we push this off, the more sick that we'll be as a country.
But go ahead. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I said you were going to say something. Go ahead.
Well, no, I just wanted to finish on that end. Is we all got to heal, and you made some good points in terms of that. Treatment and getting it done. I'm glad you were able to get on that. How were you able to overcome your addiction? As a matter of fact,
it stopped working for me. No matter, even if I got high, I did not feel good. There was no escape. So it just simply stopped. At the same time, it stopped working for me. I had never lived without it, so I didn't know it. It became an automatic thing, and in my life where I don't know how to live. I don't want to live with it no more, and I don't know how to live without it. You know, and so being able to go into therapy, and I begin to look at some of the things, and I begin to understand that it wasn't the substance. There was a lot of mental health things that were going on inside of me. You know what I mean? Yeah. It didn't. That was the substance I chose, but it could have been anything. It could have been sex. It could have been greed. I mean,
could have been meth.
It could have been anything. Yeah.
Right.
So, and that's when because the whole time I was thinking that it was the substance. If I can just get away from the substance, you know what I mean? But if I just got away from the substance, I would act out in other ways. Right. I would make irresponsible choices in relationships. You know what I mean? My self-esteem wasn't built up at certain times in my life where I could take advantage of opportunities to push my life forward. You know what I mean? I would build something up and then I would tear it down with the other hand. You know what I mean? And so when I began to realize that there were things that I had to address that I may not have felt comfortable with, that were born in childhood. You see, there were some things you had to look back to some things that were born in childhood.
Right.
You had to. I made a decision that when I look back, that I wanted to re-raise that little boy. You know what I mean? I wanted to re-raise him, but at the same time, when I'm re-raising this little kid, I got to be able to show up with this kid clean and sober.
That's right.
You know what I mean? I got to be able to do the things that I think is necessary for this little kid to look at and say, that's an example. That's an example of who I want to be. So that made me change my inner man, because I wanted to be somebody for this little boy again. You know what I mean? I wanted to be able to take this little boy fishing, to ball games, and travel and do the things that he wanted to do, that he dreamed about, that got lost in addiction. You know, I have a picture of myself as an 8-year-old boy that a man drew, and I keep that picture and I look at that little boy at 8 years old, and I think about, wow, that kid, he had so many dreams. Now I've got to revitalize this kid. And we go on trips and we do things, and I'm not going to let anyone abuse this kid. You know what I mean? Right. I'm not going to let anybody take advantage of him. You know what I mean? I'm not going to let anybody hurt him. You know what I mean? And I'm going to give him the tools and the things that he needs to live a happy life. Because now I know it's not about possessions. Now I know that it's about inner happiness. And that can be achieved every single day of your life. You don't have to wait to get to a certain position or for someone to validate you.
Yes, Lord.
In a relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. That's good, Mr. Michael.
That was my path. What that did was that during the times when I would during the times that I did have it somewhat together, I found myself in community centers teaching children dramatic arts. Mm-hmm. I once took a stint in a detention home in Atlanta where I went in and I would teach those guys dramatic arts. Now, these are young kids, you know what I mean? 11 all to 16, 17, went running around the street doing all those things. And I was able to show them, you know what I mean? I was able to speak in their language, drug dealer language, and I was able to show them how a drug dealer, you know what I mean, is equal to a CEO of a company. He has to do the same things.
Yeah.
You know, the distribution, everything, staffing, everything like that. It's just a matter of switching your focus.
That's
you know what I mean? Because a lot of these kids, they have the ability to
Mm-hmm.
become amazing entrepreneurs. You know what I
Agreed.
mean? They're just messing with the wrong product, and,
Yeah.
and we can see the results of people like Jay-Z and them guys when they came off the street. You know, they'll when you read, they say that they use the same tactics. The product is just different,
Right.
but with the same inner hustle, the drive, and to become an entrepreneur, you got to be someone who's willing to work 80 hours a week so that you don't have to work 40. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, and a lot of these kids, they have that inner tenacity to do that. They have that drive. You know, they're just messing with the wrong product. And
Right.
then once they get stamped, with that drug felony, it's all downhill from there, bro.
Yeah. You get that F,
Yeah,
man.
yeah, you
That's
get
what I
that.
tell my
Yeah.
boys that I work with. Like, don't get no F, man. And,
No,
and, and that's what it boils down to is like getting caught. And you're gonna get caught getting the F or you gonna get the misdemeanor. But you said, you walked me up to it, to a good segue. You got into teaching the kids through theater and the
yes.
arts. Before we get into Thurgood, I want to play this video that you sent me.
All right.
And you started my journey of learning about Thurgood Marshall, and I'm thankful that you were sensitive in the spirit to send me those videos, because finding out about Thurgood Marshall, what he's done is remarkable through the lens of growing up as, you know, someone basically a descendant of slavery. Like his I think
Yeah.
his on his mom's side or on his dad's
Yeah.
side,
Yeah.
they were slaves.
On his mom's side was his great grandfather.
Right. And so
Was a
it's just
slave.
like what this man was done is remarkable. I'm gonna go ahead and play this video real quick, and we're gonna get to the other side of it, and we'll talk about Thurgood and the role that you play. So give me 1 second to get this screen share rolling. Uh Thurgood Marshall. Let me know if you can see that. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. Can you hear the audio?
Stop talking about
Yeah.
how far we've come and start talking about how close we are.
Can you hear that,
Yeah.
Mr. Michael?
I think you got to bring it down a little bit though.
Okay, it's a little loud.
Stop talking about
No. The screen.
Oh,
the
yeah,
screen.
the screen. Okay.
Stop
Listen, that quote is so powerful, and it should speak to everything that we have spoken to so far in our conversation. But I'm gonna let this roll real quick. It's gonna be 5 minutes, so y'all hang tight.
About how far we've come
Oh.
and start talking about how close we are. I repeatedly tell young people, you're better off than before. And be patient and things will get better. And the thing that gets me now is not only telling me that's what you told my father, they say that is what you told my grandfather, and things are no better for me. It's admitted in the Times, New York Times reports, or Time magazine, that a recent survey shows that racism is broader and stronger than before. We're not gaining ground, my friends. We might be losing. But one thing I'm sure of, this is no time to stop.
We recognize there's a terrific problem, and we believe that the people I represent have been very considerate about this. They've taken it for 70 or 80 years, and we believe that now is the time to get around to having our Constitution apply to all sections of the country equally and to the same effect in a more or less uniform fashion.
Thurgood Marshall, the first Negro to serve on the United States Supreme Court, puts on his robes with the assistance of his wife. President Johnson called the pioneer civil rights lawyer most qualified by training for the post. Justice Marshall, the great-grandson of a slave, swore to do equal right to the poor and to the rich.
All of us have a job. And one thing, we can't do it as an individual. And we can't do it as small groups. We've got to have the one thing in mind. And I'm going to close with what I've been saying for 50 to 60 years. I don't care about the Constitution alone, or the Declaration of Independence, or all of the books together. It's not that important. What is important is a goal toward which you're moving, a goal that is the basis of true democracy, which is over and above the law. And it's something that won't happen, but you must pray for it and work for it. And that goal is very simple. That goal is that if a child, a Negro child, is born to a black mother in a state like Mississippi or any other state like that, born to the dumbest, poorest sharecropper.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is by merely drawing its first breath in a democracy,
Man.
there and without any more, is born with the exact same rights as a similar child born to a white parent of the wealthiest person in the United States.
That's right.
No, it's not true.
Dude.
Of course it's not true. It never will.
I got to end it right there.
Okay.
Wow.
Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that powerful?
Powerful. And such elegance. Beautiful. It's full of soul, spirit, the esoteric things. And I'm afraid that's what's missing, is that esoteric, unseen fiber in our country and in the individual. What he spoke about, the less of us, is just as important as the most of us, essentially. And I think that's what
just by taking a breath on American soil, just by taking your breath,
right,
you're automatically equal.
That's right. And that's true. It's really hard to deny that reality. But that's a powerful thing to follow up. And you've gone through a lot in your life, and to embody everything that you've gone through is what you would probably need to do to play this role, to take on and embrace the hurt, and the success that you've experienced in your life. I'm assuming that's what it takes to play Thurgood. But tell us about Thurgood Marshall and how you tapped into that inner Thurgood during your play.
Well, the beautiful part of when an actor takes on a role is he seeks to become the character. He seeks to become the person. You can't become the person, but what you can do is you can portray the spirit.
Yes.
Now, if you haven't been through some things and been tested, it's very hard. It's very difficult to tap in and play the great characters, maybe like Hamlet or Othello, August Wilson's characters. Thurgood, Martin Luther King. You have to. You if you're not moved to envelope that spirit, your audience won't be. You first have to achieve it.
Yeah.
And so you take yourself through a trail, you take yourself through the person's life, and the script just happens to be the tool you're communicating it with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the lines underneath the lines, that's where you embody the character. This is where you have done ample amount of research. You've looked at pictures, you've looked at films at a time. You've looked at the characters that around him that he might have, sat and played cards with, that he debated, that he went up against, experiences that happened to him. And then you move those experiences into a similar experience that you've had in your life, so that when you are talking about it, you're not reflecting on Thurgood being thrown off a trolley car. You are reflecting on Michael and that door being slammed in his. That's where you're coming from. You know what I mean? It's equal.
Yeah.
It does. If you want to portray the act of murder, it doesn't take any more than you being bothered by a mosquito on a summer day and you crushing it.
Right.
If you can tap into that mentality, you can tap into a murderer, and you can play killing someone. So it's those really fine things that as an artist that you create for yourself that ground you into the character. I may not have been thrown off a trolley car like he was, but at the same time, I've had doors slammed in my face.
That's right.
You know what I mean? And the indignation was the same.
Right.
That someone could do this, that someone could just do this to me, and that there is nothing that I can do in return.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so when you embody that and you just bring that out and you envelope that into the script, one of the things that I think is very important, and when we my director Prodan Demov, he's an amazing man from Bulgaria, internationally acclaimed director, speaks 5 languages, and he is the director of the show. And I've worked with him on other occasions. We toured China and things of that nature, but he brings to the script a non-biased look. Mm-hmm. He is not a white person directing the script, thinking that we should tone down certain things so that we can make people feel comfortable, or he's not a black director that's trying to use that as a tool to get white people to understand something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
The perfect balance.
Yeah, he's from another
harmony.
Country. Yeah, he's just looking at it as people, and he's telling and you tell the story. You know what I mean? My general manager, Jana, she's from America, but she's also Russian, speaks different languages. So that's kind of how we got developed in Living Colored, because awesome. We want our company to represent the world.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The people in the world, and the different languages, the different colors, the different expressions, the different cultures. You know what I mean? Because everybody that comes from a culture, they know about their culture. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I mean, black people, we know what a hot comb smells like in our woman.
Yes.
We know what a comb. You know what I mean?
On the stove, getting heat
racial.
Up on that. On that stove.
That's not racial. That's cultural.
That's
you know
right.
What I mean? So there's certain things that we can bring that are part of our culture, like a buffet. So, but one of the things that we try to bring to the students, is we did the show in what couple of the high schools, and what we and because discrimination,
and that's in Fort Collins, right?
That's in Fort Collins, and he tells the story of how he overcame and fought the fight. The story shows some of his mammoth giant court cases when he faces Supreme Court, and he tells about it, and he shows you how the case was won and things of that nature, and you really get to experience it, what it's like to be up in front of the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. And he also tells the tale of how he arrived at wanting to take up this mantle, because this man he didn't make money. He didn't make money. He always thought that he would try to eventually make money, but he never made money. And he was always fighting for poor people, and people that were disadvantaged. But when we talk to these students, we ask them, we say, hey, we know you can't maybe not identify with a black, a colored water fountain, a white water fountain. You can't go into this restaurant. You got to go into the colored restaurant. We know that they can't, but how is discrimination affecting you how is it affecting you students? And it's amazing that these students, some of them have same gender parents. Mm-hmm. If these kids are not getting mocked, these kids are getting beat up. They're cornering some of these kids in the bathroom and beating them up because of a sexual orientation that they have chosen in their life. And I said to myself, if we've got to take up this mantle, a lot of because of the rap music, a lot of the white kids, the teachers tell me they feel like they have a license to use the word nigger because they hear it in the music. So now they're walking around saying it, and now they have an issue with coming up in the school. So we do on the Friday before the show, we do we're sold out with the school show, and then we have a great talk back with a diverse panel. And one of the things that we're going to address is the word nigger, and we have a person that from the LGBTQ community that's going to be there. But one of the things that we wanted that highlights it is, as Thurgood was going through law school, his father, who was a head waiter at an all-white country club, the Gibson Island Club, got him a job there. Now, his father had told him previously, if any man call you nigger, you got business with that man right then and there. You supposed to fight.
Right.
He's trying to go through law school, and he doesn't have any money. He's already married. A senator comes in, crude guy, sits up under a picture of a great Confederate general. He notices Thurgood. He says, hey, nigga. So Thurgood goes over to the table. He says, hey, nigga, we need some service to this table. And so he gives him the service to the table, and the man keeps calling him nigger. Nigger this and nigger that, and come here, nigger this. Okay? But when the man gets up, he puts $20 down on the table as a tip. Now the man keeps coming back and leaving him $20 tips. His father gets mad, tells him, you fired, you a disgrace to the colored race. But he told his father what was going on. Now we researched $20. $20 during that time is equivalent to $340 a day.
Yep.
By not reacting and losing the job, he took that money, went to law school, and what did he do? Dismantle segregation.
That's right.
And so we have to learn as Black people that we, even though it's a harsh reality that people view us and think negatively about us, we can't react. But the only way to keep our power and to talk to these kids is you can't react. You can't get thrown out of school. You can't go to jail. You can't, you know what I mean, kill someone. You can't, you take that and you've got to turn that around and you've got to use it as fuel.
That's right.
Use it as fuel. And that's one of the things that we really have to try to concentrate on, getting to these kids because where your parents come from?
South Carolina,
So
Mississippi,
okay, so all right then,
Okmulgee,
all right then. So
Arkansas.
you know your people. You know what your people had to go through
That's
in order
right.
for you.
Yeah.
In order for you to be born, I say to myself, somebody in my life had to tap dance to stay alive.
Oh yeah.
In order for me to
For
be
real.
here.
Yeah. That's right.
In order
Yep.
for me to be here. You know
Yep.
what I mean? So, you have to play the game, and you have to understand that you're not going to be able to change the game, but there is going to be a point in your life when you're going to be able to empower yourself and empower other people and help other people to overcome this negative stigma. Because, I worked a lot as a salesman, and one of the most extraordinary experiences I had was working as a salesman on commission. And the first thing I knew, I had a great product because websites and everything was just coming live. I knew I had a good, but I could not get black people to buy from me. And I began to understand, because we don't trust each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We will walk past a black shoe store to go 5 miles to a white shoe store.
Yeah.
And another thing that I want to understand was this. And my trainer told me this because I couldn't understand. I would go into poor white communities and they would just act like they was all that. They would see a black man in a tie or something like that. And my trainer told me, he was black. He said, Mike, you want to know something? You can have the most beautiful car. You could be dressed in a $2,000 business suit. Your briefcase costs $500. And you can walk into a white trailer park where these people got one tooth in their mouth and white, and they still think they better than you. Mm-hmm. Just by virtue of the color of their skin. They still think they better than you. And I found out to be a truism. You know what I mean? I found out, I said, what is this black guy, he talking to me? He stank, you know what I mean? Greasy, and he talking to me like like I'm nothing, And I found that to be a reality. You touched on it earlier where you said the sickness has got to be healed on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're at an hour and 27, and I don't want to go more than an hour and 30 because I feel like we'll start having people drop off, but it seems like a powerful play that needs, to be obviously introduced where you're at. But I'd like to see it introduced in the state of Oklahoma.
We're coming.
Yeah, come on. Because like I said earlier in a video I posted, I heard about Thurgood Marshall as a young kid growing up, but we didn't learn about Thurgood Marshall in high school. Maybe we did in some of the days that I missed in school, because I missed a lot of school growing up. But just like Black Wall Street and other black advancement and contributions to the country, you don't hear much about them in high school. No. I've been teaching in education for the last 5 or 6 years. I didn't hear it about Thurgood Marshall in the middle school that I worked in Fort Collins. I haven't heard about it in the mostly black demographic elementary school that I work in here in Oklahoma. Thurgood Marshall made precedent for people that are new to this country. We consider ourselves an open border country at this point, and some of the laws that he objected against or challenged made way for not only black people in civil rights, but other people that are now coming into this country to build themselves up in. And so why aren't we learning more about Thurgood Marshall? Why isn't he that top 1 or 5 people that we learn about at the first through the 5th of February. And why aren't white Americans and other groups of people that are coming into the country, or Spanish or other people else, other groups, learning about Thurgood Marshall? Because he laid in great part the judicial and the law, as far as challenging it, the precedent to make America possible, and so I'm glad you're taking on this role of acting out Thurgood. I can only assume it's got to be a lot of work. Like, what all goes into it? How do you prepare for it?
It's study.
Yeah.
It's study. And then all of a sudden, Thurgood takes over. Thurgood takes over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He takes over, and you step into that zone where you become you become him and his spirit. But I want to close with one thing, is that every other culture you see, when it comes to science, politics, agriculture, business, they promote their most prolific people in that area.
That's right.
Okay. Whenever we are invited to the table, who does the white man bring up to the table with us? He brings rappers to speak for our people.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
He brings rappers. He brings, who did President Trump bring up there? He brought Kanye West and Jim Brown.
Exactly. Right.
Now why wasn't he
Jay-Z, right?
Why wasn't he bringing our Harvard, the black people that came out of Harvard? You know what I mean? Our brilliant. We got rappers speaking for us.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
and we got to move past that. We got to move past that,
man.
Yeah, I agree. Because I will say, man, there's some great black intellects that bring great value to every culture in this country that need to be highlighted over our rappers. And I love hip hop. I love rap. I think there are. I'm sorry.
It's entertainment.
It is. I mean, you can't be a human being and not like some form of entertainment. And so I think that's normal. But to have them speak for a culture and a whole group of people, I think that doesn't make very much sense. And so I'm definitely with you on that, Mr. Michael. But listen, man, I appreciate you for coming on. How can we get in contact with you? Is there a live stream of Thurgood that we can tap into?
We are going to provide some footage. We can't actually film it because then we got to pay the theater to film it.
Right. Okay.
And there's rules and rights and everything that we got to run. But we will be filming parts of it so that we can use it for promotion. So we'll get some things to you, and especially a little bit about the students too. We want to be able to, when we come to Oklahoma, we want to be able to tap into that educational field, because that's 50% of our production company is doing work in the schools.
Right. And so, just to be clear, this isn't CRT, correct?
What's CRT?
Critical race theory?
No.
Okay. And this is just Thurgood, his experience, his contribution, and then having students take their experience and be able to apply it to the play. Is that correct?
That's the beauty of theater, is that your interpretation is right. When you come to an art form, you know what I mean? My interpretation of an art form is right. No one's incorrect. You got to hear from the person. If you read a book and you say, Mike, that was a great book, I might read it and say, man, that book sucked. I've done that with a lot of my friends. Go see this movie. I go see the movie. It sucked. They thought it was the greatest thing. So art it's a safe place because everybody is right. You know what I mean? There's no right and there's no wrong. Everybody's right.
Yeah.
What you see and experience is right.
Yeah. And we can't get wrong what Thurgood did because it's on the books. It's in the history. And so, listen to my leaders. If you come across this, And I'm gonna just say it: Governor Stitt, Cindy Munson, T.W. Shannon, and others. We need to figure out how we get Thurgood Marshall here to play here, because he's made great contributions not only for Black Americans but for white Americans and other cultures as well. And so let's get Thurgood here. Let's have him this play out, and let's have the students discuss their experience and how it ties to Thurgood's experience, because there is no Black history without Thurgood Marshall. And so, Mr. Michael Tatmon, I appreciate you so much.
I look forward to Oklahoma. I look forward to seeing y'all in Oklahoma.
We coming. Yeah,
we will
I
be
appreciate
there.
you, brother. All right, love you, brother. Thank you.
Take care, man.
You too, brother.
All right.